Jon Jones has fired back at Tom Aspinall. And Jon Jones, he laid out his case. It was simply, did it on Twitter, right? You got, what is it, 160 characters? Somebody recently corrected me. He didn't like that Tom suggested that he be stripped. And I like this about Jon. I like the competitiveness that Jon has. I like when he's competitive to the point that it's petty. I mean, I actually appreciate that. And when Jon laid out his case, he went over his whole career. He said, man, I fought the who's who for 15 years. It's true. And when I look at that, it's a very interesting thing. Are we talking about respect? Is that what we're talking about? Are we talking about a level of laurels? And therefore, certain things would apply to you that don't apply to other guys. Like, I'm okay with that. It's never been identified, but is that what we're now forced to identify? And if I look at 205 pounds, we pulled those belt off of guys so fast your head would spin. 2 in a row. And Jon came out and said, within him defending himself, he said, I have a very serious injury. It required surgery. That's true. Does that change how long you can be out without being stripped? And I have to ask the question. You don't have the ability to answer the question any better than I do. This has never been said for us. But can we agree there must be a period of time? There must be some level of period of time. Like if you're in the school of, hey man, don't strip Jon Jones, and you're saying that because you're a hater, don't do that. Fair enough. But ever? What if in a year he's not back? Just for example. In fact, what if a year goes by and not only is he not back, he personally reveals the information to us of what went wrong and he's got to go back under the knife and we get a prediction of another 10 months. Just for example, do we strip him then? And the only reason I'm asking in that regard, I feel that Jon defended himself because he thought he was being attacked. And the way Tom Aspinall laid it out, it definitely was not an attack on Jon. In fact, Tom did not even go after Jon. He did not claim, like many guys do, I am the real champion. I'm the actual champion. What he's got is just a piece of tin, right? We hear these things all the time, and that's a very fair argument for guys to make, but it's just not what Tom did. Tom didn't even declare himself better than Jon. Tom didn't declare himself better than Francis. I bring Francis into it. He was the heavyweight champion who is no longer heavyweight champion, but did not lose it in competition. He lost it due to the paperwork and the contract expiration. Tom put himself in a very specific lane. He said, I'm the best active fighter. And there is something that is very important about that distinction. I can't think of a distinction that matters aside from that one at anything in life. I mean, I could just pick any job out there. If a guy is not active, it wouldn't matter really if he was retired or if he was injured or he was suspended or he was taking time away or he was in a contract dispute. I mean, I could go on and so forth. Like, I know there's a soft spot where because Jon is down, because he's injured, right? You don't ever kick a man. You give him a hand and you help him up. And so I do understand the good-naturedness. But I never saw Tom kicking him. I'm just bringing that to you. I didn't even see Tom call him out. There appears to be, we're lost in translation. And I don't have any better clarity. I know that the media has told you that if Tom waits as interim champion and Jon and Stipe fight, if they both retire, Jon and Stipe, as they're telling everybody they're going to do, whoever wins, if they're both going to retire, then that title they just fought for, Tom is now elevated to undisputed champion. I realize that you've been told that. You've also been told, after Jon and Stipe get done, if the winner, who's now the undisputed champion, doesn't retire, that Tom as interim champion will then take on the undisputed champion. You just built this fight more. You've done great. It's a Hogan versus Warrior situation where you got two guys with belts, both claiming they're the rightful belt, and they come head to head. That is also not accurate. The interim champion means just that. It means in the meanwhile. The meanwhile is while the undisputed champion is out. Therefore, the moment the bell rings, not when contracts are signed, not press releases, not even the weigh-in, the moment the bell rings in Jon Jones's next fight, we no longer have an interim champion. Which generally and historically is why we put the interim and the undisputed against each other. So that when the night is over, we have a champion. Right now, we have two champions. We have an interim champion, we have an undisputed champion. When Jon fights next, regardless of who that opponent is, when that bell rings, there is no interim champion. Which means if Jon or Stipe, regardless of victor, if they retire after that fight, we're going to have two champions, and we will go to zero in the same night. And I'm sharing for you that we need to come up with a clearer plan. Like, that plan can work if you can get the calendar to make it work. If you got a real good idea, a real good, clear idea of when Jon is going to return and when that match is going to be. But if it's one of these situations where it's up in the air, and the Jon versus Stipe and preserving that match and doing it for the undisputed, not stripping Jon, not doing anything, that isn't the part that I would push back on. I actually get that. I do get that to a degree. I don't like the byproduct and the next part of that current plan, which is to have Tom wait. That's the only part that needs a little bit of tweaking. And whether Tom is champion, interim champion, when Jon and Stipe fight, it's a very different and completely different conversation. Tom could go out and defend the interim belt. There's no reason why not. In fact, there's many reasons why he should. There's zero reasons why not. And the interim belt could change hands. Tom could drop it. He could lose the strap. It doesn't take away from a future fight. It doesn't take away from Jon versus Tom down the road. Because that's not a fight. That isn't even a fight that we have to look forward to. From what we're being told now, I'm well aware we're being told is inaccurate. But what we're being told is that Jon's going to retire after his next fight. Stipe's going to retire after his next fight. So there is no Tom versus the winner. There is no Tom versus either one of them down the road, based on what we're being told right now. The only part that we got to fix, guys, we got to get Tom an opponent. That's all we got to do. Jon Jones is not wrong to come out and to defend himself. Jon Jones is not wrong to wake up today the champion, and through no fault of his own, right? He's got an injury. Through no fault of his own, all of a sudden he's not the champion. He doesn't have any reason to apologize for that. But Tom is a fellow competitor who would like to be recognized for what he is, and he would like to not have an asterisk next to his name. Who just took out what was believed to be the most feared guy. By the way, he took him out quickly, decisively, and by KO in the very first round. I mean, not for nothing, he would also like his story to be told correctly. And down the road, if you're looking back and you see it, there would be no knock to Jon. There'll be nothing that you will read 10 years from now when you look back on this that will change if Jon is stripped and he's no longer the champion, or if he holds on to that belt, or if we do that 2 years from now. Like, it won't change. There's not a loss that goes in the column. So where we're going to go with the heavyweights, and the whole reason I'm speaking to this is I don't believe that Tom attacked Jon at all. That's not how I interpret it. I don't think that Tom has attacked Stipe at all. That's just not how I interpreted it. I think Tom is speaking from a standpoint of, I don't want to wait. He didn't use those words clearly, which is why I must admit I'm interpreting. But Jon hasn't overly helped Tom in that situation to find something to do, and Stipe hasn't overly helped, and it looks like they do have this agreement. It looks like they are going to move forward with that match for the undisputed belt. And as best I can tell, Tom just doesn't want to have to wait over a year. He did something, he succeeded, find me an opponent. You don't want to strip Jon, strip me. Right? I mean, I feel like that's Tom's position. If you don't want to strip Jon, let me defend the belt or strip me. If anything that is stopping Tom from getting a fight has to do with the idea that we don't want to defend an interim belt, that would be silly, or a precedent we don't have to set. Now, nobody said that. I'm just getting in front of it. If any part of that is the reason, hey Tom, well, you know what's stopping you? What's stopping you is that belt. We don't defend interim belts. It's just not how we do it. Give it back. Relinquish it. Whatever he has to do. But you got a young, hungry Tom Aspinall, who, by what I'm seeing, is out there just trying to get a fight.